Warning. The following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, good whatever you are. Happy New Year! 2024 is finally here. We've been waiting for what, a year? And now we have finally one new year with one extra day. Don't forget, leap year, February 29th. This is the year. Welcome back to Westport Insights. First show of 2024, first show of the new era, first show that is going to set us back in the path to fame and stardom and money and fortune and everything that comes to people who have excellent shows on the web, whatever that is. So one day I'll let you know when I get there. Thank you for being back here. Couple quick announcements on the next upcoming shows. And then we'll go into today's show. Today's show is going to be awesome. A show that is a week from today. It's going to have Marshall Kirkpatrick. And if you know Marshall, he's been around actually longer than I have. And he's been around since the social era. Now he has a newsletter called Time for AI or Matters of AI. I can't remember the name, but he's going to correct me next week when he's here. He does a wonderful job of curating information, news, and articles, and everything about the AI, and send it on a daily basis. And it's available on LinkedIn. It's available on Instagram. It's available as an email, which is how I get my newsletters. It's available any way you want. He's going to be here next week, and the week after that, we finally get to have Heather Williams back on. Heather, if you remember, is the founder of 2-Bit Studios. I'm not doing well with names today. They'll correct me when we get there. But she talks about visual storytelling, and we had some failures of technology when we tried that first time, and we're going to have her back here to do that. And then as we get closer to February, I'll let you know what's happening after that. We have some excellent shows scheduled through the end of March, actually, and they're all going to be a lot of fun. So that's a brief announcement. Now let's go into the show today. My guest today is one of my co-hosts, and I have to say that I'm a little disappointed because I had a fantastic show planned for today, still trying to reschedule it, and my guest bailed at the last minute, and of course, the one, the only, the inimitable, the amazing, the fantastic Alan Bergson said, yes, I'll be in a show with you, and then he said, what are we going to talk about? And I said, I don't know, and then here we are, right?
Well, thanks for having me. I like the fact that you said I had an amazing show planned for today, but we have Alan Bergson.
That's not what I said. I said you stepped in when I had a great show actually. You know, I don't want to talk down on anybody, but like canceling at the last minute is not a nice thing to do. I have to say to people, but you know, I'm hoping to reschedule, so I don't want to say anything mean. If he doesn't want to reschedule, then I will be as mean as I can in the future about this person. So anyways, we were talking earlier about topics. We were talking earlier about what to do. And we were talking earlier about many, many things over the last few weeks. And I think that you can agree with me that I'm going to say, you know, one of the comments that keeps showing up more and more in our conversations lately is like, business models that inimitable, not immutable. Immutable is like, everybody can be like Alan. Inimitable is like nobody can imitate it. Come on. Sorry, I talk about the
irritable. No, that was
he said
that would
immutable.
be you, not me.
No, he said immutable, and I said inimitable.
Inimitable. There's
Yes.
an N in there somewhere, I think.
INIMMITABLE. So
anyone
anyways,
can just look that up and post it so that it's safe.
That's right.
It would be.
That's right. So then, what we are talking about today, we are talking about decision making. The show was originally started as a way to help executives make better decisions. We wanted to have the conversations on the topics that often show up. We wanted to provide insights, that were interesting, and to that end, we wanted to help them make better decisions. One of the problems that we have, one of the issues that arise very often in business and we need to make decisions about is like, how do you make a decision to pivot, to go back, to eliminate, to stop when something's not working? And to me, this is very, very dear to my heart, even though I never failed in my life. If I would have failed in my life, there's 3 exact episodes that I could actually talk about, right? I had a retail store that wasn't working. I had a Burgundian executive career in the software industry that wasn't working. And I had personal relationships that were not working. So I do have some experience in the matter, and I want to talk about today, like how do we make those decisions? How do we get to the point that we say, "Hey, this is not working. What do we do next?" That's a good topic?
What I'm hearing, Esteban, is you had somebody cancel your show, and then you bring me on to talk about quitting. So I'm just wondering, is this a cry for help? And should I
Dude,
just, maybe you should be lying down on a couch as we're having this discussion.
I haven't had a therapist in 3 years, but thank you. That actually made me feel so good.
Yeah. What I'm hearing,
No, everything worked great at Gardner. I just left because the fuckers didn't pay me enough.
look, you and I have talked about my obsession with Annie Duke
Yeah.
and her book, Quit. I know she's not the only one who talks about this, but it's usually the person who says something that resonates with you is the one that you remember for the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And people get excited to start things, but when do you stop? And even more important, when do you decide when you're going to decide when you're going to stop?
It's funny that you brought up Annie Duke, because if we go beyond, the all the bad things that people said about her, she wrote some amazing books on decision making. She wrote some amazing books on, like, when to quit, and it comes down to poker, and it comes down to, like, every decision you have to make with irregular information, and this is a critical part of knowing when to quit, right? You don't have all the information that you need. I mean, I made decisions based on what's available to me, and I try to stick to, is this going to happen, yes or no? And I don't have enough information to say yes, so I'll say no, and then I'll go forward from there. Isn't
That's in the moment, Esteban. I think one of the things that I took away from, I would say reading her, but actually I listened to her book on how do you just try it? It's not on tape because it was audible. But listening to her book, or listening to her, and she actually narrates it. Do you have to decide, or at least have an inkling of what's going to be your kill criteria? When you start something, how do I know when will I decide that it's not working, or how do I know that it's not working?
well, but are you saying that before you start, you already know when you're going to end it?
Yes.
Really?
It's not that you know when you're going to end it, but you're going to say, I'm going to start this this business, and if I'm not making this amount of, if I don't have $1 million ARR in 18 months, then I'm not doing, or some other criteria. Am I on the right track, right? So you could sit there in the moment and say, I'm standing up to my hips in mud. I probably should stop walking because it's raining so hard. Or you can say, well, if it gets up to my knee, if I go for a walk and it's raining and the mud gets up to my knees, I have to decide whether I stop. The analogy she uses, or the metaphor she uses, is climbing Mount Everest, and that when you're doing the final ascent, if you don't hit a certain point by 11 a.m. or whatever it was, you're going to die. If you don't turn back, it's
Right.
not likely you'll be able to make the summit. And that's the kill criteria. So before you even start hiking, if I don't get to this point by 11 a.m., I'm not going to make it. I need to turn back. That's obviously
isn't
that's
there
a
a
real kill
difference?
criteria.
Isn't there? Yeah, that's not the right word in there, but okay. But isn't there a difference between climbing Mount Everest, starting a business, growing a division, and playing a hand of poker?
I feel like like you're telling me something walked into a bar joke? Is this a joke there?
It's not. I mean, I said, is there a difference? But I mean,
Business,
isn't there a
mountain
different
of business
definition?
and a hand of poker walk into a bar.
We all know that the hand of poker is going to win, but
Right.
my point to you is like, isn't there a difference between the decision making for the different situations? I mean, life and death, losing some money, slowing
Completely.
down
But
your growth,
I think what
and
I'm trying to differentiate here, Esteban, is most people. I think of myself when I think of most people. I always feel like I have very average sensibilities. Only think about quitting when there's a challenge or there's a blockage or there's something. So they're trying to think, they've hit some challenge, and now you say, okay, wait a second, as opposed to when you start the process in the first place, how are you going to measure success, and at what point, 11 a.m., are you going to decide that, you know what, this isn't working, I should go spend my time doing something else because this isn't the right path, right? Or at least do the evaluation, saying, I need to in 6 months, I need to reevaluate, regardless of how things are going. I need to stop and say, am I on track to hit the goal that I set out when I first set my success criteria, or do I need to go do something else? It's
so this is the part. This is a part where, like, it becomes very different for everybody because risk tolerance, risk management, desired outcomes. You keep picking, right? All these things change from situation to situation and from person to person. Your risk tolerance is different than mine. I'm sad that you brought up poker because now all I can think of is the last few days of playing poker. but my risk tolerance is bigger than a lot of other people, and playing poker, and that puts me in situations where I have some amazing results and have some very painful results as well, and most people that play the same hand would not play the same way that I do. This is one example, but also you start a business, and the business, there's a difference when you're broke and trying to survive and you just need money to eat, and when you're in a decent situation and you're just trying to continue a good life, and when you're just doing something to distract yourself. I mean, isn't that all those differences going to provide a different decision point for when it's not working?
Completely. That's why I started by saying, how are you going to measure success? Right? And some of them
Okay.
are objective and some of them are subjective. If my success is reaching the top of Mount Everest, there are some very objective things that have nothing to do with me that will determine whether or not I'm able to do it. And there's time and weather, right? But if in the beginning of it, I'd say I'm looking for a lifestyle business or a hobby or something, and my measure of success is, am I still having fun, and do I make enough money to cover my expenses? Yeah. That's success. Why would you quit? But if you're not, if your success criteria are those two things, then if you're not making enough money to cover your expenses and you're not having fun, but you're still doing it because maybe you think eventually you will cover your expenses and will have fun, how long do you keep doing it, not having fun and not covering your expenses?
But isn't that a bad decision if you're not covering your expenses, you're not having fun? I mean, so then part of the decision criteria is how long you'll continue?
Well, isn't that what quitting is all about?
No, quitting is about it ain't working, move on. I mean, that's why I said it's different for different people what quitting is, right? I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, I don't know.
You have to expand on that for me. I'm not sure I get.
Look, man, when I had the retail store, and we were we were getting to the point that it was at best break even to negative cash flow, and there was a recession coming, and you could see that things were going to go down. I mean, any normal, rational person would have said, "Okay, let's quit. This is what's the best way to get out without incurring too much debt and without getting too deep into the hole, whatever." But there were other criteria that most people wouldn't have considered. In my case, my criteria was happy wife, happy life. My wife wanted to have it. I'll put the money and I'll keep it. But that's not a criteria that most people will follow, because financially speaking, or like survivability wise, or even at the Maslow level of pyramid of needs, that's a stupid decision. And I'll own it, forever. But so the criteria is different for different people, right?
Oh, absolutely. It could be two people doing the same thing, and they have different
So
different quote criteria.
how do you determine? I mean, I understand you saying what is the metric for success, but how do you determine, things like timing metrics for success and everything when you start a new endeavor? And let's take two paths. I mean, one is if you know what you're doing, and two, if you don't know what you're doing. And I have the experience on both of them. So, I mean, how do you determine?
Look, it's. I think maybe you're getting into semantics, but
No.
whenever you start anything, you have to have a sense of why you're doing it and what success looks like. Even if you say, I'm going to just do random stuff. Look, when I stopped working at Freshworks in December of 2022, I was just going to spend 2023 trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So my criteria was do stuff for a year, or do stuff to figure out what it is that I want to do next. If I hadn't figured that out at a certain period of time, then I'd have to go to figure out, pick another path, right? So even if your goal is to just figure things out, how long are you going to do that for? You do that for a year, 3 years, 5 years? At what point do you say, I need to have a new measure of success?
But see,
that's what quitting. Maybe that's what quitting is that it's really not quitting. It's just changing what your measure of success is.
I was gonna, no pun intended, pivot into pivot points, which is when people are going in the direction that is not perfect, and then they're like, they change. I mean, if you're like me, you know a lot of people that had their own companies. You invested in some companies, right? And let's be honest, last quarter was not very kind to a lot of people that had small companies trying to make it, or that had investment from the outside. So I got more than a couple emails from people that say, "Hey, you know what? Decided to discontinue," or like, we ended the company that we started because it's not going anywhere. Pick your thing, right? Whatever it is. So then the question becomes, I mean, those decisions. These are the things that are interesting to me. How do you make that decision? I can tell you how I make that decision, and to me, that decision doesn't come down to preconceived levels of success. Comes down to this is no more fun, and there's something that could be better.
Let's flip it. Let's say, why don't people quit, and what are the wrong reasons why people don't quit?
Well, wrong is the bad word, but why don't people quit?
They have less value. So maybe you don't quit because of the sunk cost fallacy, right? I've already put so much effort into this, and if I quit now, it'll all be a waste. There's a lot of research around how that's not necessarily the best way to approach that decision-making process. Or maybe you're embarrassed if you quit now because you've told so many people what you're going to do, and if you stop, or you change your mind, you're going to be embarrassed. No, but it may not be a thing for you, but it's a thing for a lot of people that, they don't want to, these are reasons why people may continue on a course of action that is not necessarily the best course of action for them if they had to choose to start over.
Yeah, but how do you separate personal issues, and I want to address Estesa's comment in a second, but how do you separate personality issues, like you're stubborn, you're embarrassed, you're you whatever it is, from true business decision making, right? Business decision making is a lot simpler, isn't it? I don't care if you're embarrassed, you're losing money, you're not going anywhere.
Again, that's from your perspective. You're able to objectively look at those metrics and say this is not working. You're not taking the emotional aspects or the behavioral aspects into account. We're right. It hasn't worked for 9 years, but wait, no, this is our quarter, or this is our year. We're really going to hit it this year. I have friends who've been doing startups for a decade, and they've pivoted 4 times. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't pivot, but how often, how much pivoting you're going to do before you realize you're just stuck in the parking lot and you need to get, out of there.
Well, that's a fair question, and if you go back to Esteban's comment, if you can put it back, Brent, If you go back to Stetson's comment, she's talking about people that were successful and still they walk away or they pivoted to create new ones, right? So then the decision point is not that it's working or it's not working. I mean, if they were successful, small, large businesses, they obviously some measure of success, but still they decided to pivot or create new ones. And this is the part that is actually the most interesting to me because I don't think that success is the decision point for businesses. I mean, obviously, like you said, some people that have been doing this for 10 years and they pivoted 2 or 3 or 4 times. That's not a success metric. Pivoting is not a success metric, right? So then, I mean, is it really, is pivoting a different way of quitting, or is pivoting different from quitting because it like doesn't really get you to the point of making the decision and quitting, but you're like, continuing?
I think pivoting is a way to meander towards a larger measure of success. So
Oh,
if I said my measure of success is to build a $100 million software company, and I start out by trying to build software in the Salesforce automation space, and well, that doesn't quite fit, so I move into the help desk space. Well, that doesn't quite fit, so I move into the sales enablement space. Oh, I found a niche there, and I found some traction. Are those? That's but the overall goal was to build a $100 million software company, right? So the pivots were along the way towards that bigger goal. That was more just change of direction, meaning I know I'm going to head. I know I need to get to California, but it's not necessarily a direct route from New York to
but
California.
is there a pivot going from 100 million to a billion potential market then?
No, that's a new goal.
Okay, so then that's not a pivot, right?
I don't think so.
So then what's a pivot? It's like a pivot is going in a different direction. I had a friend that had a company that was dealing with uh, social video aggregation and decided to end up doing utilities video inspections, and ended up doing AI, all with the same company, with the same technology, with the same thing. It just keeps finding better and better fit into better and better niches for what they're trying
His
to
goal
do.
wasn't a particular product. His goal was to build a company. That's what I'm saying. What's the metric? What's the overlying success metric? He said, I want to build a company, and I have this one idea that I'm going to start with. Oh wait, that idea didn't work.
Yeah, well,
He didn't just stop. He didn't say I want to change the way people, you know, uh, read their books, and that's my goal. And I'm going to continue to figure that out, regardless of
that's
whether or
wrong.
not it makes me money or whatever.
Yeah,
Right?
but that's wrong though. I mean, I know that Silicon Valley enables that on people that are perpetual founders with no verifiable products or successes, and they just keep jumping from company to company because they're good good operators or whatever. But that's just wrong. I mean, that's not success. They're going from 0 to 100, realizing that it's a bigger market, and moving in that direction, then realizing it's a better fit for the product and going in that direction. You're not really succeeding. I mean, unless your goal is to find the right fit for your product, you're not really succeeding.
Yeah, you are. I absolutely you are.
How?
If you but because I don't think the goal is to if your goal is to build a company to the $100 million revenue mark, then you succeeded.
I don't see
And
how
then
that's a
you're
goal.
allowed to have a new goal after that. You
I
say,
don't see
okay,
how
I did
that's a
that. Now what?
goal. I don't see that. I mean, that doesn't fit this definition of business by any standards. You're not caring for your customers. You're not finding a solution to a problem. You're not finding something that needs to be improved. You're just trying to build a company for what?
Okay, and I gave value to my customers. I gave value to my employees. I gave value to my shareholders, and or whoever my investors are, and I made a
How do
living.
you, how do you
Why
give
isn't that
value to
success?
customers when you pivot and you go away from what you offer them? You offer them a product that became too dependent on data, and 3 years later you decide you want to go in a different direction
They had
because it's
value
a.
while they had it. If I'm no longer when I pivot, do I give up that other business and just close it, or do I sell it, or I think you're being what happened to that business? Did I just shut it down?
Well,
Probably not.
more than likely, if you're
I
going in a different
probably
direction.
sold it, or I realize, or I tell my, but see, I could build a business in a market that I think is $1 billion market, build it up to $100 million, and realize either the market changed or I was wrong.
Okay, so
You
then
have to.
you're not making a decision to quit. You're just making a decision to
No, you
go in a
see,
different
because I
direction.
thought it was $1 billion market, and my metric for success was building $1 billion business. I still, I'm going to go back to it, Esteban. I still think it has to do with how you measure success. If you're, and it could be shallow to say, as an entrepreneur, I measure success by being able to build a business to $100 million, get an exit, and take my $5 million and then go do it again. And that is, I'm not saying that I admire that. I'm not saying that that provides value in the market, but that's certainly a measure of success. And then, and somebody who says that's my goal.
I feel like we're going in a different direction from where we started because that's not like a decision to quit at all. That's just basically we're talking about like metrics
Well,
for
no, but you're
success
saying that you're
that are
saying
fucked
that
up.
if I get to $100 million, and I don't go to my thoughts about quitting are when your people are reluctant to change a course of action or change what they're doing because of the perception or either real or perceived risks around that quitting. If I
Now we're
quit,
getting
people will.
somewhere.
If I quit, people will think I'll be embarrassed. If I quit, I will look like a failure. If I quit, I will let down all of my employees and my investors. If I quit, you know, but what if by quitting, I am giving my employees the opportunity to go work for a better company because this one just doesn't have a future and it's not going to work, and I see that and they don't see that yet. I see that look. I don't like that look. I don't
Well,
like that look.
that's it. Like I'm gonna shut down the company and take your job away because I'm giving you the opportunity to go do better somewhere else.
No, but I'm shutting down the company because there's no future in it. And we're all going to waste our time if we continue down this path.
But see, what if your goals and my goals are different?
They will always be different.
Okay, so then why are your goals better than mine? That you get to shut down the company based on your goals, but you don't
Because I'm
consider
in
my
charge.
goals. That's wrong, man. You're never in charge.
That's true. I don't like to be in charge.
I know. I'm like, we're talking about the wrong thing here, but so
Look.
financial.
I want to. I feel like you're trying to get something out of this that I'm missing.
No, I mean, so
Try,
my idea started from like a lot of failure around me, a lot of people quitting, investors stop funding certain companies, companies that decided to go, belly up. Uh, I see people they quit relationships and they end relationships that go from end through 30 plus years. So I mean, I just trying to understand if you're gonna have to make a decision, and eventually we all do. I mean, even with the incredible success that Thinkshare has had in version 2.0, I may get to a point where I need to make a decision. Do I continue this or not? My criteria is different, but there's gotta be a framework. There's gotta be a something that allows you to say, okay, what are the five things I need to do or the two things I need to consider before deciding that this is not working. And
well,
it has to be more than just like I'm embarrassed or like I'm not
I
making
think
money.
you're saying that there's a decision point.
Yeah,
The most common
there's always a decision point.
by far the most common decision people make, and this isn't even close, is status quo. I decide to do nothing. And usually it's a default, and it's not an active decision, but it's a decision nevertheless.
That's like strategy, remedial strategy. I mean, not even 101. That's remedial strategy. Your first option is always do nothing, and then what? But I mean, I'm embarking on strategy projects with several different clients, and the status quo is always there. But organic status quo it's never an answer. I mean, if your answer is organic status quo, then you're not. I don't understand that. I mean, maybe I'm confused as to like what it means, but like to me, quitting
Oh,
is
I don't think
simple.
that's the answer. Look, Esteban, you're saying that there comes a point where it becomes clear that you have to make a decision.
And that's what I want to get to. I mean, I want to get to the point where like things are not working. No, like look, if the status quo is working and you're not like you're not you're making enough money to pay your bills and
How
you're
do you
having
know
fun.
things are not working?
Well, that's what I want to get to. I mean, is it just financial? It cannot be. I'm not embarrassed and I'm happy. It cannot be. I'm making enough
You
money to
know
pay my
things are
bills
not
and I'm
working
happy.
when the original success criteria you set out
But
doesn't seem to be achievable.
dude,
No.
okay,
What am I
Alan,
missing?
Alan. Okay, so let's talk personal. Let's talk personal.
Uh-oh.
I did not restart ThinkJar with the success criteria. Okay, that's the bottom line. I did not start ThinkJar the first time with the success criteria. The first time was in 2009, 2010. There was nothing else available for me to do. This was the only option that I had. My success criteria was like, you gotta fucking do something until like you figure out what you're gonna do. That was only success criteria. The criteria this time is like, I had to do something to like, generate some revenue. That's my only success
And after the
criteria.
first year,
Three.
why
But
did
yeah,
you
sure,
decide to
say one.
continue?
That was just a momentum thing. I mean, to be fair, after the fourth or fifth year that I had things after the second time that I came to a decision point on growing or staying a solo person, I was ready to go, and then it was just a
See,
question of
and I think
momentum,
you did have success criteria for ThinkChar.
which was what.
Can I make a living? Can I support myself?
Yeah, but
And if
then
if after 6 months you made $0, would you have continued ThinkChar?
I did for 2 years. I didn't make enough money to cover my bills.
Did you make no money?
The first year I made $10,000.
Okay, and then the
And I
second
promise you, my bills, two kids and a wife,
after
were not $10,000.
and then after the first year, you had to make another decision, right? Do I continue this or do I go get a real job?
No, that was just
Yes or no?
momentum. To be fair, that was just momentum. I mean,
Not
uh,
true.
the market
I think
still
that's
had,
not true.
the market still hadn't recovered. There wasn't anything coming out that was interesting. I mean, obviously, like everybody else, I could
Wait. There wasn't anything coming up that was interesting. That was a decision to go see if there was anything else that's interesting. Because you were looking at your criteria of, can I make a living and pay? That's why you started ThinkJar. You didn't start ThinkJar to be a thought leader, because you're clearly not a thought leader. You didn't start ThinkJar to change the CRM and CX space, because clearly nobody ever listened to you. You started ThinkJar to make a living and pay your bills and then you had to make it. That was your success criteria. You had success criteria.
Okay. So far we established that you need to have success criteria, and then you revisit the success criteria, and if it's not delivering on the success criteria, then you make a decision to pivot or quit. Is this
Yes.
where we are right now?
Yes.
What's the difference between pivot and quit?
Pivot is, I still have the original success criteria. I just looking for a different method to get there. Meaning, I had an hypothesis of how I have a goal and how I'm going to measure success, and I have a potential method to do it. And I may decide after a certain period of time that I make a decision. I still believe in the goal. I still believe in the success criteria. I don't believe that the current methodology, whatever you want to use, what the current tools, the current strategy is working to get me to that. So I pivot how I'm doing it, but my success criteria hasn't changed.
Okay. So we're a little over half past, and like and still trying to I gotta show that because actually, sorry, Brent. No. I'm showing that, dude. Don't hide it. Don't hide it. Yeah. I didn't want to say anything, but like this is like it's basically we're just talking about courtrooms before. This is like a legal way to say you're going in the wrong direction. But okay. Anywho,
I'm from New York. Sarcasm is my native tongue, so everything I say about that.
So I'm a little flustered here because this is not going in the direction that I wanted, to be honest, and I'm a little rusty on this stuff and conversations and everything. But like, I'm trying to understand if we get to that point, how do you make that decision? It cannot be as simple as not meeting the success criteria. This is a very simple answer to a very complicated question.
Great. How do you make the decision?
I mean, my decisions were not like I need to support myself. My decisions were more like intuitive of sorts. I mean, when I started the business, that the retail store that failed, it was like, I don't know anything about it, but it'll be fun. And then throughout, I learned and I got better. And then it started losing money, but then it was easier to keep it around than to like shut it down because of personal reasons. And then ended up being unsustainable. And then like we shut it down, and then became. And but the shutting down was just basically, there's only so many hours in the day and so many things I have to do, and this is like, it's just not possible to continue.
Yeah.
Informed intuition, yes, informed intuition.
Uh,
Very interesting question.
so I like the way you frame that. What I would say is it still comes back to, um, can I differentiate between the biases, the cognitive biases that will put me on a path that is not in line with meeting the success criteria. As an example, we already promised the board of directors we're going to do this, so we're going to continue this path, and I can't convince them otherwise. I'll be embarrassed if I don't do it. We've invested so much money and time and manpower. We don't have an alternative. All these may or may not be good reasons to continue on the path. But if you sat and said, with our current resources, our current people in place, our current product, can we continue to can we hit the goal that we set for? Can we hit the success criteria?
It's just structure. Do
So
people
what am I-
really
what am I
do
missing?
people really make decisions as structure when it comes to these things?
I think, well, do they?
I don't know. That's
No,
what I'm asking.
I think
It,
they, I
it,
think
it
they
says. I mean,
try
I
to.
think this is a great statement, by the way, from Stessa. Informed intuition, right? I think that all intuition is informed, but that's a different story. But like, is it really a question of like, intuition plus information plus gut feeling plus risk management, risk tolerance plus, I don't know, pick something else? Is it a very complex process, or is it as simple as you're saying? I mean, I said I was going to do this. I'm doing this. It's not enough. I said I was going to do this. I cannot do this. That's not going to work. I said I was going to do this. There's a different way to do it. Maybe you go in that direction. Is that really the structural approach that we had to take on decision making?
I feel like we've pivoted into the human plus AI conversation.
No, we haven't. We're not going to go anywhere near that shit.
No, but that's the informed intuition. I like let's stick with the informed intuition. There's data, and then there's a person who has to weigh it and make a decision in the end. Most businesses don't make decisions based, it's not, they don't have automation make decisions or do it randomly, by flipping a coin. There's a person who has to make it, and I'm not even going to say a group of people. In the end, it's one person who's going to have to be responsible for the decision.
There's always one person making the decision, right? Yeah.
And
So
part of that
then,
is going to be, can they suppress their biases and let the data help them make that informed, intuitive decision? I'm going to drop my mic now.
I don't want to talk about biases. Do we have to bring biases into this? Every decision is inherently biased. Yes. So I guess we have to talk about biases.
All right. How do you take bias out of human decision making?
You can. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to talk about biases, but every decision is inherently biased.
But you have to talk about bias.
I just said every decision is inherently fucking biased. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yes. No, there is something you can do about it. You can try to identify where your biases are and see if you can do your best to suppress them as part of the decision-making process. And sometimes that helps to have an external view where you bring in an advisor and say, tell me where I'm being an idiot. Where's my, what am I missing here? Yes, a whisperer, perhaps.
So then it's not as simple as like reaching the stated goals in one way or the other. It's going to be more complicated than that. If you have to evaluate biases, if you can bring somebody from that side to help you make the decision, if there's going to be like elements that are not previously stated as success or failure that are going to be part of the decision, then it's not that simple of a decision. We started in a path that seemed to be very simple. You say how you're gonna succeed, and then when you're done, you quit. But now we're getting a little more complicated.
Right. Just let me pause to say, if anybody is wondering, this is just a small segment of a conversation that Esteban and I have on a daily basis for at least the past decade. So if it sounds like we're continuing a conversation, that's why.
And steadily, so I'm continuing to fail dramatically in everything I do, and I still don't understand how to make the decision to get out of failure. But
so yes, it's complex, and it's.
No, but this is something interesting because we started with like a simple framework for making decisions when things don't work, and we get into like it's more complicated than seemingly possible. We throw in elements like biases and intuition that they don't seem to be part of the decision making.
Wait, there's a difference between saying things aren't working and I want to quit.
One precedes the other, usually. You're not going to quit. Contrary to what George Constanza said, you're not going to quit when you're on top.
Something not working doesn't correlate to quitting, but you quit when something's not working.
Something not working doesn't correlate to quit. Well, yeah, you improve, you pivot, you change, improve, whatever. Yeah. But you still, if it continues to not be working, then you quit. And this is not about deciding when it's not working. This is about deciding when to quit and how to quit. That was the idea behind the show.
Right.
So then we had to start with the assumption that we got to the point that is irreparable, or it's like broken down to the point that it's non-pivotable, fixable, or whatever. And that's when you had to decide to quit. And then it becomes a complicated concept of like achieve results, biases, intuition, and potentially help from the outside. That's what we put into this framework, right?
Why do you care if it's non-repairable and not working?
I don't know. We call it divorce, but that's a different story. I'm there, baby. I know that one. Why do I care if it's irreparable? Because if it's repairable, you can pivot. If it's repairable, you can fix it. You can change things.
And if it's not repairable?
If it's not repairable, why continue?
But why are you doing it in the first place?
I'm not doing it in the first place. This is the part where momentum. No, this is the part.
I'm going back to my original premise.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in a second. But look, you have a car, and a car it takes you from A to B, and one day it breaks down, right? And at some point, the repair cost makes it unrepairable. It costs you less to get a new car than it costs you to repair your existing car. So then you quit that car and you go get a new car, right? That's a simple decision.
Yes.
It doesn't work the same in business, but like at some point, a business model is irreparable. Let's call it, I don't know, say Blockbuster.
I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
Your goal is to have a car to get you from point A to B. My goal is that's my Fiat Spider convertible, and I always want to drive it for the rest of my life. So it costs a lot to fix.
But at some point, it doesn't drive anymore.
I have a different outcome. I won't be. It's not going to keep me on the road, and it keeps falling apart. But my outcome is not to get me from point A to B. My outcome is I want to drive it every Sunday on nice days with the top down.
But it doesn't drive anymore. There's something seriously wrong with it.
But it drives enough, and I pay. It costs me a lot to fix it because that's what Fiat stands for. Fix it again, Tony.
No, it doesn't. I had a Fiat that was awesome. But I mean, no, but the serious question. I mean, I understand the point, but then that's just stubbornness, right? Then we go back to where you were talking about personality traits.
It's not
I don't want to be
stubbornness.
embarrassed. I don't want to be
It's how do
stubborn. I
you
want to
measure
have it.
success?
But you can't measure success by having something that doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, then I succeeded at 3 marriages. I'm awesome on this marriage thing. I'm gonna get married again then because I truly succeeded.
The way I measure success is if I can have the car work, 10 sunny Sundays a year, that's success for me. I don't need it to get me from point A to point B.
But the cost, I mean, I feel like you're always looking for like one more thing why you gotta keep going in the direction that is not an ideal decision.
No, so let's say that the car gets totaled, and it's no longer has the aesthetic value that I'm looking for that I want to be able to have it out on Sundays. Then maybe I'll say, okay, it's not worth it. But if it's just a matter of it doesn't drive that well, I don't need to drive it that often.
So I think I don't know if we're getting too philosophical. If the matter is philosophical, but
I
mean,
philosophical. And
okay, but this is what I want to get to. This is
it's complicated.
But this is and also there's also this thing that Stessa said. I mean, we didn't talk about the outside world. What's it called, the pestle or whatever, political, environmental, the legal, whatever. Compliance and things like that. There's a whole model for that any good Gartner analyst, Stessa being one of them, former Gartner analyst, would know that that's like the number one part of decision making. And by the way, Brent, I didn't say when I was a Gartner, so you don't get to drink, but just say it.
You just said it.
Just say, well, yeah, but only for the purpose of saying that I didn't. Come on, you can't be so. That's nitpicking. Anyways, but the point is like, so then it is messy. It's not as simple as saying this is working, this is not working, let's do it, let's not do it.
Right. I think that if I had to step back, I'll get off my my soapbox on success criteria and starting with the end in mind. Decision making involves data. It involves intuition, and it involves multiple outside or as many outside input as you can get to help you remove or limit your subjective views on those other things.
And it's subject to biases, and it's subject to personality traits, and it's subject to external advice, right?
Right. Look, one of the challenges with decision making is your ego when you think that you're the only one who can make the decision, or you don't need help making the decision. That's a bias as well.
Okay, so then considering everything, which is a good framework to make this decision, right? What's the point that you say this is not working? Consider everything that we just said. Is there like one point? Is there one place where anybody can say, okay, this is not working and I'm going to end it? Consider that it's probably going to be different for everything, right? Every single situation is going to be different.
Yes. Even for two people in what you'd think are similar situations, they're not, or identical situations, they're not.
Yeah. Okay, so then we got 10 minutes, and there's one last thing I want to do before we get into the final part, which is like, the goal of the show is always to get to a framework. We just get to a framework that is messy. Is there a simpler way to do this? I mean, is there like something that you think that somebody who's in a place where things are not being as successful as you expect them can use as a way to say yay, nay, 1-0, today or never or whatever? I mean, is there a simpler way to do this, or is it going to be always this messy?
What I see a lot of is that people start a project with one idea of how it wants to turn out, and as they pivot, they also change the goal line, or they change the measure of success, which is okay, because your original guess as to what would be success may not be accurate, or may change over time. But it's a question of making sure as you do that, you're documenting that. You're acknowledging the fact that here's what we originally were set out to do. We did this. We realized that these factors were influencing it. The economic interest rates changed, or the weather messed up our supply chain, or whatever it is. And so we've made some changes. But I think that I can't remember what the company was, but they would document what went into making it, what went into making a decision, and that people lost track of why they made the decision in the first place. And so all they were left with was the decision, but not the information that went into making it. And so when they looked back on it, they either didn't know how to measure where they were now, or they wondered, well, why didn't we do something else? It happens all the time. You start to do something at a company that they've been doing stuff a long time, and somebody in the company say, oh yeah, we tried that. We did this, we did that, it didn't work. But that's subjective. That's personal.
But that's hindsight.
I would love to see data saying, we had this initiative. Here's all the conversations that went into it. Here's why.
Yeah, but that's hindsight. Hindsight is always 2020. Hindsight always works. Hindsight is fantastic. Whatever. But like hindsight doesn't really give you an idea on. I mean, for the next time, it helps you do it better. But this time, you don't go anywhere.
No, but it helps you. It helps you understand whether or not you've been. How do you determine whether you want to change something? You said if it's working. How do you know if it's working? If you don't know what the success criteria are, how do you know if it's working? And if somebody moved the bar in the middle, you can say, here's the assumptions and the criteria that went into the original success criteria. These things changed, and so now it's not working. Can we adjust for the things that changed, or do we need to quit because it's beyond, anything that we can salvage and we should move on?
I don't like that. I think that you gave me the answer that I was looking for, but I don't like it. You got to a structure framework of like making decisions and quitting or not, which is where we started. But I don't like the answer. I don't like it that there's a way to do that. I like it to be either simpler or impossible, not structured enough. Sorry, look. Every decision in life is going to be messy. There's going to be at least one decision that is simple, which is like it's working, it's not, let's quit, let's not quit. That's the final decision. I mean, sure, then you have to unwind and everything, but the final decision on any endeavor, so yeah, stop giving me what I want. Nobody has ever given me what I want, dude.
There's the joke about, why do we cut the turkey in half before we cook it? I don't know. Let's go ask, Grandma. Why do you? Oh, I don't know. Let's go ask Great. That's the way we've always done it. And it's like, well, and the original person cut the turkey in half because it wouldn't fit in the pot, right? So somebody made a decision to do something a particular way because it served an outcome. I needed to cook the turkey and it wouldn't fit in the pot, so I need to cut it first, right? So everybody continues to do that. If the people down the road understood the decision as to why you cut the turkey, it had nothing to do with the flavor, it had nothing to do with the prep, it wouldn't fit in the pot, then they can make different decisions going forward, and they could quit cutting the turkey because, oh no, put that back.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I was gonna say exactly the same thing, dude. You started the right way and just killed it halfway through.
I just love the fact that it's butchered and I'm talking about turkeys and whatever. Okay.
Wow. That was, it started in the right direction. And then somehow along the way, you should have quit along the way and you didn't.
It's good. I should have quit.
That was a bad decision.
That was a bad decision. But that's why I talk about understand, if you can document what goes into making decisions, it helps you make a decision to quit later because you knew why you made that decision in the first place. And I think in businesses, often that information is lost. Why are we doing that way? I don't know. It's the way we've always done it.
Okay. We got about 5 minutes left, and I wanna leverage this, try to salvage. We cannot salvage it. This was I'd be the first one to say I was a little rusty on these conversations on the show. It was a little not very well thought out. It was just a topic, and we did a good job of getting to where we wanted. But I wasn't the best, so I do appreciate you hanging in there with through this process. But let's use the last couple minutes to something fun. What else am I not? What else didn't I ask or think of or said, or what didn't we cover that is related to this topic, or questions that are missing or something? Anything?
I maybe I'll reemphasize the external voice, and this is not. It's not about whispered insights. This is. I think that too often ego gets in the way of good decision making, and even if you have the data, and so being able to have a trusted advisor or a third party or just even outside somebody with an outside point of view to say, based on the data, here's what I see, and you're telling me something else. What am I missing? So just to sort of help, improve the decision by questioning some of the assumptions or what went into making the decision.
And this is a person you trust and respect, and you think that they went through it before, so they can give you good advice. So is this grandma telling you that the turkey doesn't fit in one pot? I'm good. I'm good at this. You're never gonna outbid me at this one. I'm good at this one. I can always bring shit back. So,
it sometimes it helps if it's someone who's been there. Sometimes it helps if it's someone who just has a framework for helping you make decisions. So it's someone you trust that's going to say, "I know you well enough to know where your faults are," or because even if they're an expert, if you just take somebody randomly who's an expert in the space. I'm not sure that necessarily helps. I mean, it does provide value because they give you something else, another viewpoint.
Framework is exactly what, it's not what I was going for, but it's exactly what I think that all this lies for decision making. I think that, and that's what I'm trying to do through this show, is build these frameworks, in the messy way. And I think that we accomplished that today. I mean, my goal at the end of each one of these shows is to be able to go back and pull a framework and document it in a written form, and then share it. And that's gonna be something I'm doing this year. But I like the way you presented it. Like I said, you gave me exactly what I was looking for. It's just that I don't like the answer. That's all.
Hold on, you need to bring the last one up.
What's the last one? That's a keeper. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not going to say too often.
Nice back from the turkey.
I'm going to say people who are afraid to fail are usually the reason things fail. Because if not, if you have a framework, if you have a timeline and a framework, you can always make the right decision at the right time. I mean, hindsight, 2020, whatever. But so yeah. Anyways, we managed to salvage something out of this disaster that I put together, and I appreciate your patience and your ability to do that as always. I think it was a good question overall. It was a good conversation overall, but it started a little messy, like life.
I think actually messy was exactly the right style for this, because you weren't looking for a framework and you wanted to actually establish or at least explore the fact that it is messy, and that simple solutions to complex problems don't exist.
Yeah. Anyways, with that in mind, Stesa, thank you for hanging in there and for providing your input. Alan, thanks for hanging in there and having this conversation. Brent, thank you for pointing out that Alan butchered that joke, that I didn't want to do that, So I'm just saying. And with that, we're going to leave with Brent's last comment, which is probably the best thing so far. So anyways, thank you, Alan. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we'll see you next week for a great discussion with Marshall Kirkpatrick. And by the way, just so that you're prepared for that one, he wants to talk about my hatred of AI. And I want to talk about the similarities between social media and AI movements 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and today. So we'll see you next week. Thank you.